Hello, fight fans. I'm that boxing writer, Jeremy Harridges, joined with Heather the Heat Hardy. Heather, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it's been I've always expected Bernie to connect us, and finally we've connected. Um, you've been out of the ring for 20 months. How hard has that been?
Oh, I've not only been out of the ring, I was out of the gym for all those months too. So after, hustling so much in 2020 with the pandemic and everything shut down, it was like, all right, happy 39th birthday, get back in the gym. So
Kind of
it's
talking
been a
about
hustle.
I was gonna talk about that hustle. So everything closes down. Gleason's is closed down. You can't train anybody. You can't train yourself. How do you make things work day in and day out?
Well, I got a little spot where I live in my apartment building where I could train people. So I started training clients in the building. We were all kind of locked down and secluded here in our apartment for months. So we got real close, and I started teaching a bunch of people boxing here. And then when the weather got nice in the summer, me and a handful of trainers from Gleason's kind of hustled out to the park with our pads and stuff and just kind of sun up to sundown. We'd be out there just grinding, getting people off the street. It was like workouts were like drugs in New York City over the summertime. People like, oh, can I get some pad work? Can I get some pad work? So we just were hustling, man.
So when was it that you finally got into the gym? How much time have you been able to put in there, and how hard has it been finding sparring partners?
Oh, I got really lucky with sparring partners because my best friends are all former world champions like myself. Veronica Jeffrey, Melissa St. Bill, Melissa Hernandez. Melissa Hernandez, as you know, is going to fight Chantel Cameron, I think May 29th.
Mhm.
So she's been in New York City. We had camps side by side together. And there's still no sparring allowed in New York. So we got to hit the gym at 5 a.m. before it opens just to get in the ring and get our rounds in. That's been the challenging part.
So kind of, going into your upcoming fight, was it May 14th? Um,
Mhm.
how worried are you about ring rust and that sort of thing, or is that something that you've been able to overcome with this added time?
One thing my mom always taught me is she said, if somebody was trying to steal your wallet off the street, are you going to tell them, give me 15 minutes to warm up? So I don't worry about things like ring rust. That's not a thing. When the bell rings, we're in a fight.
Mhm.
So I'm good right there.
I think it's interesting, and I think some people might forget. I mean, you only have one loss on your record, one loss in all this time, and it came against arguably, maybe the pound for pound best fighter right now in Amanda Serrano. Looking back in that fight, what were some of the things that you took away or maybe learned from that experience?
It's a good question. A lot of people have asked me that. I don't think I learned too much. I kind of knew going into that fight that she was an elite fighter. She was top tier fighter, and I was just like a little bit notch right underneath her. I knew that my technique wasn't quite as good as hers. I knew that I didn't have the power she had. I knew that I wasn't really performing at my best at that weight class. But she challenged me to a fight and I had to take it, right? Like I knew I had to take it, and I'm a fighter. I'm an Irish fighter. I knew that no matter what, I had a chance. I thought I had a chance. So I don't think I learned anything about myself that I didn't already know going into that fight. That I'll fight to the death. You have to drag me out of the ring to get me to stop. And I got some things in my game that needed to be worked on. I don't have natural talent. I have to work hard.
The decision to move from featherweight to lightweight, what kind of brought that on for you? What was that something that you've been thinking about?
Um, I wanted to move way back in 2000. What was it? When did I win my world title? 2018. And Lou offered me a world title fight at 126 against Shelly Vincent. I couldn't say no. I waited my whole career for it. And then after that, I thought, okay, I got to go back down. But Bellator only had a 125 weight class. It was hard for me to make weight the last 2 years of my career. I mean, even when I fought Amanda, I was in the best shape of my life. And the morning of weighing, I was spitting in the cup. 3 days, no water. Like I was a mess just getting to that 126. So I knew, especially after putting on weight with COVID, I put on, God, nearly 30 pounds, that there was no way I was going to come back and be able to hit 26 again. So This is a much more comfortable weight for me.
While you're training and maybe not having to obviously, push your body to lose that excess weight, how do you feel physically different now without having to put that stressor on your body?
Oh my gosh, I'm a week out and I only have a pound and a half to go. I
That's
mean,
awesome.
that is, I usually have that going to bed for the morning of weigh-in, knowing I'm gonna wake up and have a pound to lose. Like it's so foreign to me to just have this kind of energy. My last sparring session was great. Like I could have probably won 4 more rounds, and it just my entire career, because I started my career at 118, then went to 121, then went to 126, and I didn't belong at any of those weights. So to kind of be in my wheelhouse, it feels really comfortable, almost in a scary way.
Well, and the whole idea with weight cutting, I mean, not just from boxing, but from the MMA world, especially in MMA, it can be a scary practice when people are trying to cut so much weight. And we see that thing where, people are fainting off the scales and things of that nature. Do you sense that it's much worse in MMA, or is there need to be some reform in MMA and boxing?
No, I think that it's really hard in MMA. It's a little bit harder in MMA because they don't have the amount of weight classes, right? Like, I'm not really sure about the UFC, but I know Bellator has a 125 and a 145.
Mhm.
I know I'm not a 145, but I'm sure as hell not a 125. But I had to get down and get into that 125 because it's the only one for me, right? So I don't know that it's better or worse, but you have so much talent cramming into weight classes. And that's where it gets dangerous, when you don't really fall within that 20-pound range of the weight category. I do see more MMA fighters cutting the weight, but that becomes like standard practice, right? Like somebody who's walking around at 135 in boxing might fight at 126 because it's normal. But in MMA, might want to fight at 115 because they know whoever I'm fighting is walking around at 135. Does that make sense? So
Makes sense.
I
Yeah.
don't know that it's more or less dangerous. It's just personal choice based on the competition or the landscape of the competition.
Looking at women's boxing, I think finally women's boxing is starting to get a lot more attention that it deserves. That the compensation, obviously, it's not where it needs to be, but it's little by little been getting better because of people like you and many of the other fighters that have been pushing for equality within boxing. Looking at someone like Clarissa Shields, who's going to, give her shot in the PFL, and you've done Bellator. What more needs to occur so boxers don't feel the need that they have to be compensated, going to another sport?
Well, I've been saying it for years, and people hate when I say it. They don't like to hear it. But women don't make as much as men. Come on. I mean, it's not even kind of. And everybody likes to use that excuse. Well, women don't draw as much as men. And my answer to that is because you don't promote them the same way you promote the men, right? Like you have, and again, like I get so much shit for this in the media, excuse my mouth.
That's fine.
But I had this conversation with someone before. Like you have someone like Katie Taylor. She won her undisputed titles on the undercard of an Anthony Joshua fight, right? She was on the undercard and she became an undisputed world champion. I mean, that's unheard of for men. There's a certain blueprint that you bring a guy up, whether he's an Olympian or he's a B-side fighter, it doesn't matter. Every promoter has a blueprint. Like I said, whether it's for their star money-making Olympian, like a Katie Taylor, or a B-side, I know I'm gonna bring this one up to feed them to the wolves, right? There is a blueprint, but women don't follow that blueprint. Women aren't brought up on that same blueprint, right? Like, usually if you want a Katie Taylor or something, if she was a man and you want to make this an undisputed champion, we're going to introduce her as the opening fight on the main card, right? Let everybody see who she is, put on a great show. Then we're going to make her the co-main event, make people really know she is. Then we're going to make her the main event, right? Like that's what they do to boys. They don't do that to us. So it's hard for us to reach the same financial potential as a man because we're hindered from the start. Sexism is built into the sport of boxing. And until that's changed, you're always going to have women, and Eddie is kind of big on saying this, well, that's the biggest purse you've ever gotten. That don't matter. It's not what the boys make. So you have, and this is a problem for women across the board in all different kind of jobs and industries. There's only room for one. And if you are making more than all the other women, you can't run your mouth, right? You can't say nothing because there's 10 girls behind you just waiting for that spot to just be happy with what you're getting, right? So it's easy for me to talk shit from the outside because I'm not up on that top seat making all that money anymore. I'm making shit money. So I could talk about them and feel okay because I'm not feeling threatened.
It kind of looking at that idea, you said, and I think you're 100% right when you say sexism's built into boxing. I'm curious, and I've brought this up with some other female boxers in particular, and I've gotten actually different answers on it. The length of the rounds, 2 minutes versus 3 minutes. And I always looked at it as, well, you're only giving a female athlete about 60 something percent of the same ring time as a man when you have a 2-minute fight, round versus a 3-minute round. Where do you stand on that?
So I hate the idea that women make less money because they fight less, shorter rounds. They make us fight the shorter rounds. You can't say we're not allowed to fight 3-minute rounds and then say, well, we have to pay you less because we're not letting you fight more. That is another thing that never held water for me. I know that like quite a few times when I was going to have a fight, whether it was at Barclays or mostly at the Barclays Center when it was on Al Heyman's cards, he would say, okay, you can put her on the undercard, but she's only got 20 minutes, right? Now, if I was defending a WBC title, sometimes I would have to defend it in 8 2-minute rounds, because I only had a certain amount of time. So the shorter rounds are really more from the top saying, we don't want to give women as much airtime as men. The second part of that is there is no female fighter who would say, I don't want to fight 3-minute rounds, because we all fight them in the gym. We spar them in the gym. We're used to them in the gym. It's almost easier because in a 3-minute round, you could take a little time off, catch your breath, move around. You have more time to reevaluate. You have more time to get that knockout. You stun somebody, okay, I got a minute left. I'm gonna finish this. But with 2 minutes, everything is bang, bang, bang. Next thing you know, you're sitting down. It's so much easier to win, lose a round. You don't really have that play with. So, I wouldn't say I want a 3-minute round, because then you better be paying me more money.
I think that's well said. And I'm glad to hear you say that too, because I always thought, that female fighters are getting robbed of ring time in comparison to the man. It's not an apples to apples comparison when you're trying to rush the fight. I don't know. It's something that I wish that they in boxing would change. Let's talk a little bit about your next fight. You've got Jessica Camara. Tell me what you know about her.
Well, she fought one of my friends. I know she's a really good technical boxer. She's, sound, right? Like she's got a good foundation on her. And those are the most dangerous ones, right? The ones that think too much. She's technically sound. But I know styles make fights, and I'm really excited to see how it pops off.
Talking about this division, the lightweight division, you're talking about Melissa St. Ville, who's also your friend. When you have friends in the same division, yet you're all competing for kind of those same belts that are there. Is there a scenario where you or certain friends that you would refuse to fight, or is it, hey, this is business, we know that I would fight, a Melissa St. Ville down the line or another friend?
We always kind of talked about it in the gym. Melissa is one of my sparring partners and one of my best friends. She's like a sister to me. Veronica, one of my best friends, like a sister to me. We don't have to fight each other. We don't have to, we don't have to. That's the thing. We don't have to. So there's absolutely no reason why we ever would. If Melissa became the undisputed lightweight champion of the world, I would move weight classes. That's my sister. That's my girl. I don't have to fight her. I could fight somebody else,
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense to me. Couple more questions here and I'll let you go. Thank you again for your time. As far as remaining goals, you've become a champion. You've made waves and been one of the pioneers of the sport, especially for other female fighters. What are some of the things that you would like to do before you ever get to that point where you're not boxing anymore?
It's a really good question. In the off time, I had really had this conversation with myself a lot. And I thought, you know, and I don't have to prove anything anymore. I won my world title on HBO at MSG as the co-main event. I had my billboard, you know, on 34th Street, my big stupid face right above Macy's. And had so many moments in my career, my MMA career, my pro debut, on my knees, hearing 30,000 people say my name. I fought, like you said, she'll go down in history as perhaps pound for pound one of the best fighters ever. And I made it. I don't have to prove nothing, but I love boxing. And the thought of retiring when I might have still had something in the tank is what kind of turned me back. Lou offered me the fight, like I said, right after my 39th birthday. And he said, if you want to do it, it'll be in April. You start getting in shape now. I had to drop 30 pounds. I had to change my life, really pull myself from the bottom and get back in this. And I proved to me that I could do it. And that was more important than anything I have to prove to anyone else. Boxing wise, I'm going to get through this fight, go on vacation, lay on the beach, and see, do I want to make another world title run? Because only one person can answer that, is me. And I'm not going to know until after I got out of the ring and get to digest. Was this worth it? Do I want to do it again? And am I willing to invest my body in another year or two of the sport?
I think you said that very eloquently, and I think you said it all right there. Thank you so much, Heather, for taking the time. I look forward to seeing you on May 14th, and
Yes.
It's been great to finally talk to you.
Yes, on UFC Fight Pass. So what one thing that I'll just add is it's such a beautiful thing that we have things like UFC Fight Pass. And no, they're not paying me to say this, but as a fighter who did fights at Roseland Ballroom, friends of mine like Ronica, Alicia Ashley, they would go around the world. We didn't get to watch them. There was no streaming service available. It was like we would find out the next day, or one of the coaches would be texting or calling the watch parties at home, right? Like my family in Florida would miss all my fights. It's so nice that now, after 10 years of being in this game, that my fans and friends and family and neighbors can log on and watch the fights and actually be a part of it. So that is really exciting.
Connecting you, people can see it. UFC Fight Pass, May 14th. It's going to be great. And I love the card from top to bottom. It's a great card. So
yep, super psyched.
Congratulations for getting it, and best of luck to you.
Thank you so much. It was lovely talking to you.
Oh, thank you.